welcome to another episode of Silafia. Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our viewers out there, our family and friends, for your support. Mamoli atu le whawhitai tele I le mamalo le atunu o e o loo langolango inda fole nei au nanga o le Silafia. I aso ia o mātou whaatasi ai ma tina, ma le tamaitai o Audrey ma Sina. Yeah, they are members of a group is called Pacific Integrated Network. So first of all, I would like to thank you for taking your time to be here and talk about and share with us your knowledge and experience and your contribution to the community. Please, Audrey.
Whawhitai lava mo le awanoa Ken. E mua lava ona si'ili vi inga mo le whawhitai. Ia, mo le nei aso, ai mai se lava le nei awanoa auro ua e tu ina mai a maua I le nei taimi e whaasoa atu ai I le mangaluenga. Ken, thank you so much for the opportunity for allowing us to be here today. It kind of was sprung on us in a delightful way, I must say. I think God works in mysterious ways, and I think the last 10 weeks, how God has worked, especially in our lives and a few other ladies who we've journeyed with, has really exploded our minds. And I think, you know, in terms of our community and really serving our Lord is serving our community. And so here we are today to talk about the Pacific Integrated Network. And I must add, the podcast that you have released, I have thoroughly enjoyed. And I really thank you too for your sharing and your generosity in sort of articulating what it is. Because it's not a common practice for our Samoan males to express themselves. And I think in the last podcast, we've seen that in you. And for you to sort of step out in faith because you met an old man in the courthouse some time ago and how that convicted your heart. And here we are today. So thank you so much, Ken. And I'm here with my sister, Sina. So Pacific Integrated, what can I say? Probably about 8 years ago, you know, having you know, growing up in Australia, I think in the last 40 years, we've kind of really seen our Samoan community evolve over the years. And a lot of the OGs who perhaps may be listening would understand this. And I guess Canterbury Bankstown used to be like one of the main hubs back in the day. Like you yourself would know that in Balmain, we had church groups out that way. Or, you know, Sitoi Ina, you know, Tepa Whalatu Ese, you know, outstanding, beautiful man of God who really shared his heart. And, you know, here we are today. So it kind of, I guess the statistics was what really shocked us into coming up with some sort of solution to assist our community. And I think one of the things for me personally, having grown up here and then worked in juvenile justice 28 years ago, we barely had any of our Pacific Island kids. I may say lava ia tupulanga Samoa. Hardly any back in the day. Fast forward to today, you know, unfortunately a lot of our young Samoan people filling up these centres. And that's heart crushing for us because it's not just that statistic. And I think it was these statistics that kind of really woke me up personally, because it's like, what are we doing? We have so many of our people out in the community, professionals across sectors. What are we doing to combat this? What are we doing to address this? Because you know, in corrections 2016, you know, ta'u numera statistics. And when we sit in these meetings, we say Pacific numbers. But o lava o numera nei, o numero Samoa, statistics of Samoa number 2 in corrections 2016, that's a phenomenal number for us. Per capita, even though it's per capita, it is such a That's a significant number for a minority group, you know, and not just in criminal justice. You've also got foster care where a lot of our kids have been taken away. We're pretty much up there, you know, competing with our Indigenous First Nations people. And then you've got other stats like health. You know, number 2, one of the staggering things that really like stunned us too was that Samoa was number 2 in renal dialysis. And we're talking about chronic illnesses, but we'll probably get, you know, around to that. But I guess, you know, we sort of all came together about 8 years ago. And I think the beauty of the network is Pacific professionals across sectors, you know, police, corrections, juvenile justice, health, hospitals, schools, you know, because that's another major, universities, you know, coming together and collaborating collectively to, because my philosophy or the ethos of the network is, where does this juvenile come from? Where does this old man with diabetes come from? Where does this woman who's suffering DV come from? They come from a family unit, right? And we need to address what's going on there. We can't, all of us in our individual capacities, e ngata lenga luenga ngata. So together, e ngā lue whaakasi, a wāire yele tautua, a wāle whasosoani. Because, you know, the needs of our families are they differ from family to family. And it was catering to that and really sort of exploring that. And I think over the 8 years, like I've seen myself, just how powerful and miraculous it is to work together and, you know, to accomplish like such awesome outcomes. But that's enough from me.
Mahalo for everyone. Thank you, Ken, and thank you for inviting us today.
It's a pleasure having you both on.
Yeah, I know. It's actually quite a real great platform to actually express and actually talk to the community of what the services that our Pacific Integrated Network actually has to offer our people, whether, you know, Samoan, which we both are, as well as our Pacific communities throughout New South Wales. So, yes, as my sister Audrey had mentioned, the Pacific Integrated Network kind of started back in 2015. And the whole purpose of it is basically professionals or people in the community sector that would come together and work together to help our families, to sort of, you know, basically model how we as Samoans work out solutions. It's not by ourselves. We actually work with others to help sort of, you know, sort out whatever issues that we is happening for us. And so, you know, I've been working in the community sector for over 20 years. And so I've always, you know, I know at that time, Audrey's mentioned, you know, our population, as you know, is just increasing every year. We've seen, you know, and that's why it's statistics in all these different areas that are quite, you know, to governments and, you know, and society is like quite alarming. So it's really important and timely that the network such as this is in place, because we are aware of other networks that are in the community, like the New South Wales Pacific Communities Council, and then you have the network out here in Mount Druitt, the PIMDAN. But Pacific Integrated Network was actually formed to actually address and support the communities out in the Canterbury Bankstown area. And we, you know, it's actually good to sort of like speak about how does it look like, you know, the PIN network. Audrey had mentioned all the different services that are accessible in that network. She's mentioned we've got the court justice systems through policing, the local courthouses, Centrelink. You have access to health support services, school networks, and also the main welfare community organisations that assist a lot of our community members. So through this network, it's basically professionals or people working in that field that just happen to be Pacific, coming together and working together collaboratively in addressing the needs of individuals or families, if that is what is needed. And so the network is quite an active network. It consists of a lot of grassroots workers, people that are on the ground working face to face with our community members. And the beauty of this network is it's that collaborative approach. There's no sense of, our main aim is to, the benefit of our community members, that their lives will be able to move forward. Whatever situation that's happening for them, there's always going to be a solution, and that solution comes from the services that are out there, which, having worked in the sector for over 20 years, you see the access. It's always been the access. How do our Samoans, how do our people access services? And that's why it's important. This network is making that access a lot more known to the community, to show that there is services out there, and it's just getting the right people to come along.
It's a conversation worth having as to, you can access, like, the services are there, but we also need to ask, why are our people not accessing these services? And it's not just our communities, it's actually quite common across all communities, right? Like, let's say, for example, our university students, like, there was, a pretty serious incident where 2 of our students, took their own lives in Western Sydney Uni probably about 5-6 years ago. But the common misconception is that, they have these services, but research indicates that mainstream students also don't access these services that they have available. When I say services like mental health services and other services that, support students within the universities, right? But studies tell us that even mainstream students don't access those services. So what does that mean? Well, you've got Buckley's chance of a marginalised student, because, a lot of our community is classified under the marginalised students, right, will not access those services. So if the mainstream aren't, then the marginalised or the cord communities aren't.
But why?
Right?
What do you think it's...
Why? Okay, so often we know, as our people, it ole ngangana, ole le malamalama, they don't understand. There's a lot of different factors, right? Like, you ask yourself, even for us, like, even we don't access help for ourselves. And I'm not too sure whether it's because we're just built-in rescuers and we're just made to serve, that we tend to not access these services. Yeah, but why are our people not accessing? And even simple visits, like to the GP, to the doctor. Like, we have Pacific for ma'is out there, for angale, like, we know our Samoan, Dr. Olatanga, Dr. Patu. But yet again, our people are still not, they are struggling, to have conversations with their people. So why is that? So I guess, in terms with us, we know that our people don't access these services, and they only access when they're desperate or when they really need it, right? Often that's when we see them. And I guess that's for you, Ken, that's when you saw that old man. So let's go back to, like, legal issues, policing issues. And just so that everyone understands, like, there are multicultural liaison officers that sit in a number of police area commands, right? So you do have one in Mount Druitt and in Penrith, pretty scattered. I can't name them all. I know there's definitely one in Kempsey, but they're situated in these police area commands to assist and to support the community. They are also accessible for our Samoan community, our Pacific community, right? And they're there. Utilise them, because often our people don't know that. So also, if we can talk about this, right, a lot of our people don't understand is that they can exercise their right to silence. So if you're approached by police and say, for instance, like, you have no idea why you've been hassled, or most of the time you would know why you've been hassled and why you've been, approached by the police, and you do provide, the common things that you should, like your name, your address, and all the rest of it, right? Those, you should be compliant with those. Anything else pertaining to whatever issue it is, whether it's, I don't know, whatever issue, let's say, I don't know, I hit someone, or, you really don't have to tell them that. You can exercise your right to silence unless you have access to perhaps legal advice. And a lot of our people, some of them don't realize that they are eligible for legal aid. Some of them are not eligible. A lot of our people now, they should be eligible given the 1st of July announcement for our, because there was a lot of issues around eligibility for, the 2001, post-2001 citizenship, right?
Yeah.
But was also about permanent residency, and there were a lot of issues surrounding eligibility for our New Zealand citizens, because a lot of our Samoans fall under that category, right? In terms of assistance, Centrelink, mea whai tupe, housing, even like all that sort of stuff, right? So then also legal aid comes in there. So there's an eligibility for, or criteria for like legal aid.
And I suppose I can jump in here. Obviously, if, say, a community member found themselves in trouble, just knowing that there's actually these people in those positions like the multicultural community liaison officers at police stations that are there to help the multicultural community, whatever background that you happen to be with, and to help you through that process to get an understanding of what your right and what your responsibility is. And I think, for more community to be aware of that and knowing that there is help, whatever stage that may be, if, you coming in to, ask about a particular issue, or you've done something and you don't know what's going to happen to you. So I think it's like just being, the Pacific Integrated Network is actually a great network to actually go out there and, go to areas such that our community would meet. I think to sort of really, explain to them that, there are people out there that can help you. There are people in those positions in these different types of, organisations such as health, police, courts, Centrelink, where you can actually...
And now it's almost mandatory in these different government departments to request an interpreter if you do not understand the language. Like, we really encourage you tato tangata, wha mole mole, a whai e te le malama lama I le ngangana o le, Englisi wha Peritania, e eilau aya for a support person and for someone, an interpreter, wha liutala, right?
And it's actually available whether you're in a government or non-government organisation. So interpreting is available to anyone.
So you mentioned the interpreting, because you guys are currently, I'm very, very proud of you guys are doing the courses now. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that scholarship?
Yeah, without getting into how we got the scholarship, I guess it's,
acknowledgement to Multicultural New South Wales.
Absolutely.
For actually being the organisation that allowed us that opportunity, that sees the need for more community languages such as Samoan, Tonga, a lot of our Pacific languages, and granted us the scholarships, and not just one,
Joseph
quite a few of
Laposta.
us.
Big ups to Joseph, the CEO, Joseph Laposta. It truly was a gift, and this guy, Joseph Laposta, he posed the question to me on the International Translation Day at the State Parliament. It was a big event. And I honestly don't think he understands the brevity and just how important this really is to our community. It is huge because there's so many, for angale, the issues are so vast. Ai manga o mia se tangata, e whaali upo mo tato tangata, a wale malama lama, a tili, in the different situations. And boy, yes, I'm very proud of this group of women. So big shout out to Fa'alu, to Teresa, to Vala, to Bolu, to Bridget, Sina. And it's, been 10 weeks. And like I said, we've been so blessed on this journey because let me tell you, the code of conduct and the ethics kind of really broadened our minds around how we operate because, so naturally for angale when we be awhi sosoani for angale tato tangata, we really go over and beyond to the point of breaching our own ethics sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like we even though we're so convicted, but e whainga tā lea lofa. E makua I whainga tā lea lofa, because when I'm in the community, I just have this thing, like, it's so hard for me because it's like, you know, like you're like my brother and Sina's like my sister. And so assessia that we're dealing with, it's like I kind of, you know, we're really learning impartiality. And, you know, when I see someone, whaanga leo sesi Samoa, yeah, leo sesi, to me, I see someone from my own family, you know, and that's how I operate, I guess. That's how I roll. And to be a part of this course and to journey with the ladies, to really sort of sit back and, because sometimes when you operate that way, you actually start to enable that person. If you get what I'm saying, you're not really helping them in the end. You know, like you should be empowering them, yes, to help them, but to a point where they become so self-sufficient that they can do it themselves. But I think we tend to help in a way for angale, you know, what, they're in trouble again and we're there. They're in trouble again and we're there. You know what I mean? But really sort of, yeah. So this course has really sort of, I brought that to light for us. And yeah, I'm so proud of these women, to be honest. And one of them is, yeah.
I just want to bring you back to PIN, Pacific Integrated Network. As members of PIN, did you have any challenges that you faced?
Just so thought I'll, you know, let you know, within this network, there's over 60 members that are part of that network.
Huge, eh?
I know. When we sort of look for...
On paper, it's over 100. Like when we had a master's student sort of, you know, take down everyone's names through the years and just all the, you know, all the business cards that I've collected, but kind of didn't get back to those people because it is mammoth. But the thing is with our network is because we're always in action. We're like forever working. And honestly, like even though we should be doing the back end of all this stuff, sort of reconnecting with everyone, and I think because that's who we are,
and
we'll be
I
done.
think you because you asked the question about what are the challenges, and it's like, you know, as the network, it's about working together, you know, getting over, you know, we're not, you know, I'm not coming in to take over your clients. We're actually working to help, like as a wraparound sort of support for a particular, you know, person or a family group. I mean, we can probably talk about some of the examples we've done, you know, when working collaboratively as a PIN network, you know, in our respective, you know, positions.
Are
in
you
the community.
talking about challenges with our own people, like what we come
well,
across?
Just going back to that old man, I'm just curious because you have such a vast network of services. You got more than 100, but I'm just wondering, in the access, you mentioned access, which is like an average person like myself, just have no understanding of the system. You know what I mean? Don't even have a little, and I caught up like that old man. I'm just wondering how easy the access into services and how it works. Like you have all these services here, and then how do I tap into it?
In terms of legal, there are community legal centres. I'm pretty sure there's one in the west area. There's Southwest Legal Community Centres. They're there to support and provide legal support across sectors. So you've got like housing, for instance, tenancy, court issues, family court issues, mediation. You've got these centres that are around. Actually, Jackie Ziesel, Vala, they worked in these community legal centres, which are accessible. To gain access to that, perhaps in terms of legality stuff, like legal issues, perhaps they can email through to you.
Contact,
and then,
you know, who do we? I know you're asking your question about who was it, that first point of call.
Yeah.
That's, you know, because that's always going to make the difference in them taking it further, you know, being more, you know, confident to ask for more help. Because we understand the difficulties. When you say challenges, you've mentioned language and not knowing the system. Where do I go? So for people that do know the system, that's where it's, you know, I'll take it on myself to go out there and actually approach you know, try and, you know, sort of break that sort of fear for them, you know, to sort of make that contact, because it's all about connecting. Once you find a connection, then you can, you know, then off you go. And then with the network, you know, the network is a structure kind of thing, and that connects us. But within that network, you've got individual workers.
Yeah.
So whatever, you know, area that we're working in. So when we do have a client, let's say that one client, it might need help in, you know, with Centrelink. Oh, through the network, we know who's in the network that can help them.
Yeah.
So we, in the PIT network, you know, work with the client to, you know, walk them through or walk with them so they can go get that help from Centrelink and things like that.
If you're in the court or you're in the hospital or you're at a school, whesilingia, be yesela ko social worker ina mawhai ona whisosongia lātou. Because often that word does get used. I mean, interpreter, whaaliu upu, they might not be familiar with that, but it, you know, I mean, you strike me as someone who would understand the language, but it's understanding the system. And it's okay not to understand the system. It is okay if you do not understand. Manesi mea I tato tangata, mankuanga, or, you know, the Samoan language is your first language. So we don't expect you to understand English in such an extensive, whaangale comprehensive way. You're allowed to not understand. You're allowed, and it's okay. And so if ever you're in that situation, we just encourage you to ask, you know, that you want to understand, and, you know, whaia e o laia kere o malamalama, then ask if there's someone who can help me in my nationality or my, you know, language group or whatever. Can I have access, or can you help me access that person? You know, don't have to say it in those words, but social work is a common, you know, word that's used. I remember Arno say, God bless him, he's still around, still working and serving, you know, our community. But yeah, he was the social worker that people called upon all those years ago, and they still do.
And it's, very simple, you know, just asking, you know, can I have someone to help me from my background? You know, if you know, if they don't know to say social work. So, because usually in all the different areas, there's, you know, workers that would understand. That's the challenge, you know, trying to work with, you know, a Samoan or Pacific person. You'll need others, you know, people from that background to help, you know, with that particular, you know, client as such. So, so, and I think it probably just, because we're, as you say, simple. So if, you know, if it makes it easier for our people, just, you know, ask for that help. I just need help. Can someone help me? You know, and if you know, and it will be better if they, you know, they were from my background or from the Pacific. But
whether in police, health, education, in the schools, don't be afraid to ask for help. We have a lot of liaison officers for oro to tonua onga, you know, primary school, both primary school, high school, and even in universities like Western Sydney, we have UTS, we have Pacific Islanders who, you know, liaise with our students, with families, and a lot of them are Samoans too. We have a lot of Samoan workers, liaison officers and student support officers in the school environment. You know, so don't hesitate to ask, because I think what our people don't understand is they have a right to understand. It is so important that they understand whatever context they're in, whether they're in the police, in the courts, in education or in health. You know, you have to understand about your health, or the health of your mother, or the health of your father, or the health of your child. You have to understand the education of your child, you know, all those sorts of things. So you have a right to understand and a right to know. And if you don't understand, then you should seek the appropriate help. For angalef so soangi yatsi oe e malamalama atili.
There you go, viewers. It's very simple. All you have to do is ask the question when you go, like if you're in trouble with the police or you're in court. There are services out there. There are people out there. They even speak our own language. Don't be afraid of asking the question. Is there a social worker there? Is somebody there can help me? You can even ask in Samoan. I think you very much, girls, for that input and that information. I'm so blessed to hear the various and different knowledge that you guys share with us and the work that you guys do. So I just want to, because I promise I have a session in each podcast to ring the bell, and the bell is there for the purpose of us keep talking about domestic violence. So I would love to hear from you girls and share your understanding and your knowledge when it comes to domestic violence. So before you get out, I just want to ring the bell. So what do you want to share about domestic violence or sa wāngai tonu ainga?
Well, as I know, domestic violence here in Australia, it's an offence and a criminal offence, and that starts from the home. And domestic violence, you know, in the work we've been, you know, that we do in the community has been, it's quite, it's not a simple kind of a situation that can be fixed like quite easily. There's a lot of different layers to domestic violence, and it's about how do we bring, you know, understanding to our people or to a person from a, you know, multicultural background about what domestic violence is here and what's tolerated, you know, what's not on and what's, you know, kind of acceptable. But yeah, it's plain, I mean, put simply, you know, the work that we've done, that we work together to help, you know, families or individuals experiencing domestic or as well as family violence is to help them be safe, because that's at the end of it is about, you know, how are you safe, you know, whether it be physically as well as emotionally.
You mentioned something about family unit. It's such a broad, because to me, when they talk about DV in a family, automatically I would think of couple involved.
Domestic violence is a pretty loaded topic that affects everybody, and I think the people that commonly get forgotten about are the children. And, you know, I say it's loaded because e telenga le malama a tili tato tangata I mea ta o le domestic violence. E leanga o le physical abuse, which is what we all know, and that is quite common. But, you know, you also have emotional abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, even financial. It's the control. When there's an imbalance of the control, there's a problem. And like Sina said, it's quite a complex situation for Angali, and the layers, lots of different sort of factors and issues. But in terms of children, because it does impact you in the way that when you grow up as an adolescent and also as an adult, it impacts you, and it also, studies have indicated that it does impact your health. And so a wealth of research has indicated that, you know, now they're talking about not only child abuse, but mix that in with domestic violence. Like, what does that look like with the couple? This is what I mean, like the different dynamics and the factors so the contributing factors of domestic violence and how that impacts the husband, the wife, and especially the children. And what I find so fascinating is ele ke ingu mawalunga fa be tatu numera I fale pui pui, right? Tangata matatua, fale pui pui tupulanga, you know, and all these different, like when you look at those statistics, it really does reflect a lot of these complex issues, But without getting too much into, you know, that sort of stuff, because it can be heavy. But to understand too, I tato tangata, that it's not just physical violence that we're talking about or physical abuse.
Because there's all different forms of domestic violence, if you were, you know, that Audrey's has already, you know, mentioned it. And that's, I think, is what needs to be sort of talked about more. So, you know, in our, so when we come together as a community, we get to understand what it looks like. This is, you know, these are the types of behaviors, these are the, you know, things that would happen. And then knowing how they can make, change, like what are they going to do about it? Are they going to, seek help to stop it from happening, or, because at the end of the day, it's about educating. The more you are aware of what it looks like, and if you recognize it and knowing that there is help there to stop that, then you feel, then you'll feel a lot more, probably, more secure and confident knowing, you can do something about it. But I know domestic violence, it is something that's not just, it's across the whole community. And I know it because there's always that saying, domestic violence sees no colour, sees no age.
100%. And like you said before, like physical, we can tell, we can see, it's visible, like we can see all of that. Emotional, it's hard to detect. Even the person who's very embedded and so entrenched in that they don't see beyond. For angale, the emotional abuse that they, like everyone else on the outside might see it, but they don't see it. And that whole manipulative, controlling, behavior over their spouses, that all of that sort of, happens in the background. But you're right, Sena, it's about educating now people to understand, to be aware of that, to be conscious of that, because often a lot of them don't know that they're victims of that kind of abuse,
Or they could be contributing in, you start off as the victim and then you end up being the person, the perpetrator, perpetrating that violence, which is usually what normally happens, and we'll end up, we'll come along and help, the families or the individuals go through those processes if it's, going down the court system.
And it's understanding the trauma as well, because hurt, and I know you've spoken, about this too, about hurt people hurt others, or hurt people are hurting. And it's really sort of unpacking that trauma. It's not easy. It's not easy to identify those sorts of things and to talk and express, how they're feeling, what they went through, what was the impact, like how do you feel today, all that sort of stuff, just unpacking all of that stuff. And, like we mentioned earlier, like Ken, like you've, really expressed yourself in those different areas. And we'd like to encourage that kind of dialogue with our own Samoan, boys and men, our males, to encourage them to talk. And I think that creation of safe space too, like we're starting to really understand.
Looking at what's healthy, when we're looking at, when it's domestic violence, it's about healthy relationships. What does that look like?
Absolutely.
And I think
we share a lot of information about domestic violence with. I want to bring you back to PIN, the Pacific Integrated Network. How many services are involved in, for instance, there is an incident happened to a family. So looking into it, what type of services they have to go in and help this family? Okay. Can you give us an example how it works? Can you share that?
We can share a family group that we utilize as a network of PIN workers coming together to actually support this sibling group. I mean, funnily enough, it was very much on domestic violence. That was the was the issue that we went in on. However, it was through the connections that the PIN workers had. One of them was initially contacted by a local school to needing help to help mentor a young, funny enough, a young Samoan girl who wanted to connect with someone in the community to sort of talk about things that was, kind of impacting her, but wasn't able to share with her school teachers or anyone. But because of the connection one of the PIN members had with that particular school, and and the principal was able to reach out, and from that original connection, that particular member saw it wasn't just one person that needed to help this particular young person. Reached out and sort of asked another PIN member to come on board to sort of help, with the situation. Because as, connecting with this young person, it sort of, we, took on a mentoring role with the young girl to sort of build a rapport, a relationship. So she was able to, let us know pretty quickly what was happening in her life. And as, community workers, we could definitely know that there was a lot of things that were quite concerning, and so it was about, building, that connection with this young girl and sort of to get, to help walk her through to a stage where she was able to connect with one of the teachers in the school, the welfare teacher, who just happens to be also connected to the network as well, to come together and recognise there was a real sort of probably dangerous situation happening at home that needed to be looked at, and how were we going to ensure, make sure that the safety of that young girl who was part of a sibling group was able to leave that situation. And it was this particular matter. It didn't happen overnight. It was actually over many, many months, probably a year, where it came to a head during COVID, where unfortunately, as you know, there was a lot of restrictions where people were still at home, and these particular siblings, this sibling group, unfortunately, as they were at home, trapped. But what had happened through the network, the PIN network, and the connection, the relationship built up between the members and that, young girl who was connected to her sibling group, was able to introduce another sibling to the group of workers to talk about what was happening at home, because they were comfortable to talk about it, not just to one of us, but to the three, PIN members that were working with that, that sibling group, and started talking about what would the safety plan be for them if there was a time they needed to leave that situation. And during the COVID period, it came to that time where they needed to leave. And then what had happened in that situation, there was sometimes it's like a code word, to try and, to sort of, it's something, there was a plan in place. We talked about what would be something that would be not, too obvious to anyone else that would not know, but to the workers that were, working
this
with
was
that
a really
group.
serious, complex
And so,
case where the kids everything was monitored. They had in this day and age, it kind of really gobsmacked us, really, because we didn't think that was us back in those days, not today. You know what I mean? And but it was that kind of situation that was kind of new to us too, because we just thought, whoa, we've never seen this kind of situation before, but to the point where all communication was monitored. These kids didn't have any social media. So it was like, how are we going to create this safety plan that was just so simple and that would know everything would be activated at that time? And I think what I'm really grateful is how these young people trusted us to activate that plan. And I think because at that time, Sina, all three of them weren't together, but, all they sent was just the one word.
And that one word,
and that was the code word to
one of us, to one of the the workers or mentors that were working with them
from education, from the education space.
From that one word, the appropriate services came in
and helped out.
And that happened a couple of years ago. In COVID, 2 years down the track, these sibling group are now independent.
Fast forward from that, these young people are full-time uni, working, they've thrived. They really thrived. But to give you an example, when these kids were transported to an emergency housing, right? Just one phone call, the police in that area we called, and the officer who's Tongan went straight over with 3 big hampers to these young people. They were so overwhelmed just to see someone Pacifica knock on the door. Right? Because they were isolated. They're now alone. We were working after hours to go there after work to visit them, and stuff like that, because they were so frightened. But to give you an indication, at our very first PIN meeting this year, the education officer involved with those kids, this is 2-3 years later, for the first time met the officer from that police station that went to visit. And she got teary. She cried the education officer who helped during that time cried, and said, man, it's such a pleasure to meet the officer who comforted the young people at that time, right?
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. But yeah, that's just one of many cases of that's young people of specialised protection, working with police, working with education, and also another police from another area. I mean, that's the power of this network, I guess, and very proud that we are able to collaborate like that to assist and support our community.
Yeah, because of time, we are probably just 2 more minutes, just 2 more minutes. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you two again. I know there's a lot of discussions and things that we need to talk about, so hopefully that we can invite you again, and if you're available, you can come and talk a little bit more and use this platform to promote whatever you guys are doing and the network, PIN network.
And I think because we're so sort of committed to, we're always working, and because something always comes up, and that's probably not even our area of expertise, is to blow our trumpets and to have that out there, but it's in progress. It's in progress, definitely.
And I think, thank you, Ken, for allowing, PIN other, members to come, if, opportunity to come and actually talk about what their services, how they can support and help our people.
Yeah, because it's
all
vast.
about, the more awareness, the more education,
Yeah.
more
100%.
information out there will, help them in, reaching out for help.
Yeah,
I've
we'll
still
send them
got
your
a few
way.
more questions to answer
Yeah,
because of time, but
No, but that's
Anyway.
okay. Like
appreciate
Sina
it.
said, we'll send them out to you. NDIS, aging, like elderly, all that sort of stuff, legal.
Health.
Yeah, we'll send them your way, Ken. But thank you so
Education,
much
and
again for the
because
opportunity.
if anything, I think the network also has sparked other sort of networks in their particular, areas of, their fields. Like, we are aware of, there's an education, Department of Education, Pacific network of Pacific community liaison officers in schools coming together to, sort of work together and help support each other, and they are part of our network. So
That's right.
it's it's really good to sort of see that it's happening, collaboratively, all these networks, because that's very much the Pacific way.
Malo vale ona sai ia veile nei tu lai mo muli tu vai fa ftai te o luat fa avano ino luat tai me pe ona ta o le tai me wa fano ia ai te mole au sila fia fo ia le tatou audience po e fo lo maua mai te nei au onanga ia o te a vea ia nei tu lai o te lalo atu ai pe ai se upo sala po se ngana fo I wale tau I lau whaalongo po lau whaafonga ia po to ale tau taia sela na atu iama pe o la e fo I upo ai ia manu ia tele nei aso I ia Yesu. Amen.
Amen.
Say